tradition, courage, honor. They are what make us. We are the warriors of Tsushima. We are samurai!
Jin Sakai was once a proud samurai who, by circumstance, strays from the strict code that they are expected to live by. When a threat so immense puts not just his own life at risk, but everyone he has ever known, Jin is forced into adopting dishonorable tactics to eradicate the Mongol army and save his people from slavery and death. His methods are deemed brutal and traitorous by the shogun, who fear the influence he may have on people. But locally, his legend grows until the Mongols themselves begin to fear the Ghost of Tsushima. But before he became the Ghost, Jin was a little bitch, at least according to his father, who thought his son soft. As expected, he was brought up to be a warrior, and it took several years for Jin to prove himself capable. During a campaign on Iki Island led by his father, Jin earns his first known kill off-screen as a teenager. He expresses some trauma after killing a raider during a battle, but his father commends him for it. We first see him questioning the samurai ways in flashbacks during the Iki Island DLC. His father was nicknamed the Butcher due to his ruthless actions against the population of the small island to the southeast of Tsushima, and willingly sends his men to die, as it is their duty if he commands it. As the campaign continues, Jin gets a feel for battle and grows to enjoy it, as he admits it makes him feel alive. There aren't any other confirmed kills, but it's likely he gets some more here, since he joins his father in battle until the day their army is lured into an ambush that leads to a day that will haunt Jin for years to come.
May your death benefit all beings.
His father's death effectively ends the fighting on Iki Island, with Jin and his father's army retreating back to Tsushima. His uncle, Lord Shimura, the Jito of Tsushima, promises to raise Jin as his own and fashion him into the greatest warrior he can. One day, as they track an injured bear together, an assassin makes an attempt on his uncle's life. Jin gets his second known kill here when Shimura sees it as a training opportunity, encouraging Jin to execute the man the correct way, with respect, by looking him straight in the eye. A stout believer of tradition, Shimura raises Jin the best he can and succeeds in making him a powerful warrior. But not all promises can be kept.
The path ahead may take a lifetime, but I will walk it with you. Always.
Yeah, that was a fucking lie. Fast forward several years to 1274. Tsushima Island is on the cusp of being invaded by a large Mongol army. Lord Shimura, Jin Sakai, and 78 other samurai are there to greet them. They send their greatest fighter, Lord Adachi, to challenge the Mongols' greatest warrior to a duel. But the invaders' leader, Khotun Khan, doesn't care about honor and makes a point to disrespect their values by lighting him on fire. He demands the samurai surrender, and instead they rush forward into battle. But this isn't going to be a Thermopylae situation. Jin gets a quick 8 kills while rushing the beach on horseback, but the emergence of black powder weapons make the Mongol army much more dangerous, and Jin is knocked off his horse. His uncle is there to save him, however, and they fight side by side with Jin putting down another 13 Mongols. The other samurai have fallen, but the Khan is vulnerable and the duo rush at him. An explosion knocks Jin to his feet, who gathers himself a few moments later to see his uncle has been subdued. He slowly moves for his sword, but an arrow to the back, not the knee, ends his adventure right there. He wakes up later into the night and quickly realizes he's no longer on the beach. Confused, he checks his surroundings to find Mongols are raising a village and either killing or kidnapping the civilians there. He sneaks around trying to find his sword until his savior Yuna makes an appearance and proves herself an Oscar-worthy actress and a brutal killer. After learning who Jin is, she confirms his uncle is still alive and has been taken prisoner.
Canada.
Wait, where?
Canada.
Man, how'd they get all the way over there? After avoiding the Mongols raiding the town, Jin finally finds his sword and immediately gets to use it. There are too many around, so Yuna suggests quietly killing the Mongols to save the villagers and prevent them from raising any alarms. But Jin is a samurai, and he abides by honor and tradition. He puts 6 down with Yuna's help and promises to help her find her brother Taka as long as she assists with freeing his uncle. On the edge of town, Jin gets to select a horse we'll use for the foreseeable future. They ride eastward to Castle Canada, where Jin rushes the castle, much to Yuna's dismay, who would rather go about things quietly. But regardless, he racks up an impressive 23 kills before he calls on the Khan. Khotun emerges with Lord Shimura behind him to make a point. He wants the Japanese to surrender and prevent more bloodshed, but of course they won't, and he knows that. The Khan and Jin go toe-to-toe, and he easily overpowers the last remaining Sakai. Jin is able to get a little prick in though, which earns him a trip on the Gravity Express when Khotun tosses him over the bridge. He somehow survives the fall, however, and finds Yuna a little while later. He won't stop trying to save his uncle and expresses his need for more allies. Yuna insists they save her brother, who is a skilled blacksmith. He knows the Mongols took him and they scout out a nearby encampment. Jin has to make sacrifices if he is going to save his uncle, including breaking the samurai code. The Mongols will slaughter their prisoners if an alarm is raised, meaning Jin can't simply walk in and fight honorably. His first dishonorable kill brings him a bit of trauma, but it's something he'll get used to, because he has to do it again, and again, and again. Taka is nowhere in sight, but a freed Ronin knows the Mongols had a blacksmith with them as they march to Azamo Bay. Yuna knows someone who can help get them inside without alerting the Mongols and will meet Jin later. So in the meantime, he searches for more allies and begins with Sensei Ishikawa, one of the most skilled archers on the island. He's surprised Jin survived the battle on Komoda Beach and admits he never made it after being attacked on the road by some bandits. Jin tries to recruit the sensei, but he's on a quest of his own trying to find his student he labels as a prodigy. Jin is a little salty about that, considering he was turned away by the sensei for training, but Mongols are present and need to be put down. They check the fort after clearing it, and a prisoner confirms that Ishikawa's student Tomoe has been recruited by the Mongols and is now training them how to shoot. Ishikawa admits he pushed her too hard, which led her right to the Mongols. He agrees to help Jin when he calls on him and suggests he find Lady Mazuko to help as well. But when he approaches her property, there's evidence of a struggle, and Jin is jumped by 3 assassins that he dispatches quickly. He follows the cock prints on the ground, and instead Lady Mazuko finds Jin, who, like Ishikawa, is surprised to see him after news of Komoda has spread. Her husband died on that beach, but Jin doesn't elaborate on how. He attempts to recruit her, but she has problems of her own. Shortly after her husband left to fight the Mongols, her compound was invaded by assassins, who massacred her entire family, so she intends to find out who's responsible. She leads Jin to a village and asks he speak to the monk in there. Jin informs Sogen about the attack on the Adachi clan and that Mazuko still lives. He links up with her outside of the village, and she believes the monk is responsible for the attack, stating he showed up soon before it happened. Now he's in a hurry leaving town, and they stalk him on the road until he joins up with some bandits, and they overhear him in a panic telling them about Mazuko's survival. They pay the iron price for their crimes, and Mazuko slaughters the monk before he can give up any information. They search the grounds and find a list of names, which will give Mazuko a lead on who is responsible for her family's deaths. This gets her on Jin's side, and she agrees to help free Lord Shimura when he calls on her. Jin then travels south where Yuna introduces him to Kenji, a merchant and sake brewer that uses his trade to stay in the good graces of thirsty Mongols. They hide in his car and sneak by them, gaining access to Taka's last known location. Jin gets his Sam Fisher on here, killing 4 guys stealthily and ensuring the others are none the wiser. They track a slaver right to Taka, who has been worked ragged and bears witness to his sister's brutality. They're able to escape before the slaver is found, but the alarm attracts the attention of some Mongols outside the town, who become warm food courtesy of Jin and friends. They meet up with Kenji and hide out nearby, scouting out their next destination, which contains a forge Taka can use to craft Jin an accessory that will allow him to scale the walls of Castle Kaneda. Jin tells the others he'll meet them there later and rides out to recruit the Straw Hat Ronin to their cause. Jin finds evidence of a skirmish and finishes an injured Mongol off, then directly after runs into his childhood friend Ryuzu, who is now the leader of the Straw Hats.
You look like a scarecrow. You've looked better too.
Jin requests his help in freeing Lord Shimura, but the Ronin are starving, so Jin agrees to help them find food in exchange for their help in freeing Unk. But first, they get to have a little fun together, slicing up Mongols in the forest before moving on to the Straw Hat camp. Jin's master plan is to raid the nearby fort the Mongols are occupying, but these fools are hungry as fuck, boy, and can't fight like Jin. The few that are able to fight travel with Jin and Ryuzu to the fort and discuss a plan of attack. Jin sneaks inside, eliminating a few guards, then destroys their signals so they can't alert the Mongols camped on the beach down below. He signals the Ronin lying in wait, and they go ham on the unsuspecting Mongols. But problem is, there's no food in the fort, and it's all been transported to the ships on the water. Now instead, while the Ronin wreak havoc on the beach, Jin and Ryuzu sneak by the distracted Mongols, except for this dipshit with zero awareness. They grab a rowboat and check out the nearby ships, pushing Jin's kill counter up by 18 and getting the opportunity to watch a bear maul some Mongols. They locate the food stores on one of the boats, but the Mongols are now privy to their location and rain fire down on them, burning the boat and any food on board. Jin was able to find a scroll detailing supply lines though, so with a little extra elbow grease, the Ronin can ambush them and find some food. That's enough to earn Ryuzo's favor, who agrees to meet Jin when he calls on him. He rides back to meet Yuna, but Komatsu is under attack, and this is the day the legend of Jin Sakai begins to flourish. He defends the people with his life, soaking the roads of this town with Mongol blood as he saves every resident he can and sends them to the forge for protection. They also introduce Bankar dogs here, who are ancestors of the modern-day Tibetan Mastiffs, but I'm not counting them or any horses that die at Jin's hands, because y'all just fucking hate when I count animals. Jin gets his total count over 200, earning the admiration of every survivor in the area. They comment on how furious he fights and that he is unlike any samurai they have ever seen. Yuna feeds into it too, claiming he is a vengeful spirit sent to destroy the Mongols. Afterwards, Taka focuses on crafting a Kaganawa that allows Jin to scale walls, but suddenly someone outside shouts Jin's name and demands he come out. Ryuzo's men have been kidnapped by the Mongols and he needs his friend's help to free them. While they travel to their location, Ryuzo admits he has some disdain for Jin after he made him look foolish in a tournament years prior and ruined any chance he had at being a samurai. Jin apologizes, not realizing the impact his battle prowess would have on Ryuzo, but that seems a lifetime ago, and their priorities are here and now with the Mongols, who lose 20 more men at the hands of the Ghost. The Straw Hats are freed, and Ryuzo curiously claims his men were fed and well taken care of by the Mongols. Jin and the squad wait outside of Castle Canada, but the Straw Hats are a no-show. Time is running out, so Jin elects to continue on without them. Using Taka's creation, Jin scales the walls without being seen, and with the help of Ishikawa, Lady Mazuko, and Yuna, he's able to systematically cut down the Mongols. But unfortunately, who he thought was a friend has turned into a foe. Out of desperation, Ryuzo intends to claim the price on Jin's head to ensure the survival of him and his men. Knowing Lord Shimura would just send his men to die in battle anyway, he sees this as a way out. But Jin Sakai is no pushover, and he repeats the result of their duel years ago that turned Ryuzo into a salt factory. Despite the betrayal, Jin gives him another chance, but instead, he shouts for backup and runs while Jin cuts down the remaining Mongol warriors that investigate his shouts and remain on guard duty near his uncle. Jin frees Lord Shimura, who relishes the opportunity to fight side by side with his nephew and clear the castle of the last few Mongols. While the Khan heads north to continue conquering Tsushima, the castle is retaken. Reports from the north confirm the Khan was able to claim Lord Shimura's castle though. Yuna did her part in helping, but before Shimura will grant her and Taka passage to the mainland, he demands she stay and assist in retaking his castle as well. So while Yuna seethes about that, Jin is scolded by Unk for his methods made aware to him by the Khan while he was imprisoned. They ride north to light a beacon to signal the Khan they're coming for him. But Mongols stand in the way and get slaughtered by Sakai and Shimura alike. Afterwards, Yuna recommends they request the help of Yarikawa, which is much easier said than done. Lord Shimura squashed a rebellion years prior, so the local population is not exactly fans of the guy. The pyre is lit, and Shimura tasks Jin with finding a pirate who can get a message to the mainland and also obtaining his father's armor. But before he sets out, Jin meets Norio, a warrior monk who bolsters their ever-increasing alliance. Jin uses instant transmission to appear in a Mugi Cove to find a two-armed Goro. Goro learns that Lord Shimura lives and wishes the pirate to pay his debt to his Jito. They need the shogun to send reinforcements from the mainland if they are to have any hope against the Mongols, but they control the seas and will make it nearly impossible for him to leave without help. Shimura just wants to fight with his nephew, man, so he's finding any excuse to fight Mongols with Jin. So they'll cause a distraction so Goro can slip by. They rush to the fort overlooking the water where Jin gets a solid 30 kills using various methods. But there are a lot of ships in the harbor and Goro won't survive unless Jin uses Mongol weapons against them. This is admittedly a little difficult to discern since the bodies are so small, but each small boarding boat appears to have 4 Mongols on board. 11 of those were sunk, along with the 5 archers standing on the shore. And finally, the 3 larger ships were destroyed. We know there are guys on board, but we can't really make out how many. So going back to the mission with the Straw Hats where they board some boats just like these searching for food, we can reasonably assume the 3 sunk here are manned with about as many people, putting Jin's total kills at 73 using Hawacha. That allows Goro to get by the Mongols to deliver Shimura's message, which contains a surprise. He wants to formally adopt Jin as his son so he can take his place as Jito. While they wait for reinforcements, Jin meets Yuna outside of Yarikawa, which is under siege by the Mongols. There's a hidden entrance, but they need to sneak by the enemy. It's not a bloodless endeavor though, and this fucking fool is selected as tribute. They slide into the town using a hidden alcove under the waterfall, and Jin speaks to their leader, who refuses to work with Lord Shimura and elects to wait it out until the Mongols move on to the mainland. That means he needs convincing, so when Jin learns their best archers left town and haven't returned, he sets out to find them. Some of them have been captured, and the ones that weren't intend to free their comrades, so Jin helps, killing 16 Mongols with many coming in a single act. He tells the archers to get back to Yarikawa and follows them to assist when the Mongols eventually attack. And while they wait, Jin and Yuna share some sake. A lot of sake.
This is terrible.
And this is where the ghost legend continues to grow. When the Mongols attack, Jin is responsible for Yarikawa's survival. He gets 63 kills as he butchers, maims, destroys, and frightens the Mongol warriors. The smart ones run, and Jin turns to the people of Yarikawa impressed with how these untrained farmers were able to fend off highly trained soldiers. He's the ultimate hype man, and these people eat it up, opting to join the ghost in his fight against the Mongol army. From there, he rides back home to pick up his Farger's armor, but it's not where he left it. His old caretaker Yuriko pops in to say what up, and admits she hid the armor due to bandit activity in the area. Jin goes to pay respects to his father at his grave by composing a haiku until Yuriko can retrieve the armor. As soon as he puts it on, some Ronin call for his head outside, but instead, they lose theirs. Before leaving, Jin inquires if Yuriko can make some poison as an additional weapon against the Mongols. She's not too pleased to hear about his tactics, but she's willing to help. She needs reeds, which grow by the river in the village nearby, but it's occupied by Mongols. It's not exactly necessary to kill all of them, but considering its proximity to his home, it makes sense for Jin to liberate this village entirely, which provides a healthy 33 kills that pushes Jin's body count into the 500 mark. He grabs the reeds and joins Yuriko at a camp where he picks up Wolfsbane that can be turned into a very lethal poison, with a couple Straw Hats finding that out the hard way. When he rides back to meet his uncle, he's informed of a message intercepted showing Mongol battle plans with Ryuzo and his men planning a surprise attack, but Jin intends to stop that shit before it can ever happen. While scouting out the area, Taka shows up looking to help, but he's not a fighter and just wants to try and make Jin's job easier by luring some enemies out of the fort. It works, and the ghost makes good on his name by eliminating Mongols quietly and efficiently until he comes face to face with his old friend. He don't want none of that smoke though, and lures Jin into a trap. When he wakes up, he notices Taka has been captured as well. Khotun Khan offers horse milk and tries to convince Jin to surrender. When he refuses, he unties Taka and hands him the Sakai sword, claiming if he kills Jin, then he can go free. Knowing he'd pull some dumb shit, Jin tells Taka to run, but instead, he tries to kill the Khan, who sees the attack coming from galaxies away. He easily subdues Taka and brutally murders him as Jin watches helplessly. Eventually, Jin wriggles free since rope doesn't work on ghosts, and he slaughters 9 of the Straw Hat Ronin before reaching the gate. As he does, Yuna arrives looking for her brother, who she finds in a couple pieces nearby. Her anger overcomes her, and she wants to slaughter any Mongol or Straw Hat who dare oppose her. And that's exactly what happens, as both Yuna and Jin ruthlessly put down any enemy that approaches. They bury Taka, and now that he's gone, Yuna has no reason to go to the mainland, and elects to stay and fight alongside the ghost. They head back to find the samurai from the mainland have arrived, who have also heard the tale of the ghost and express a little judgment on his methods. When he talks to his uncle, he confirms his adoption plan was approved, so Jin is next in line to rule Tsushima. Now that the reinforcements have arrived, Lord Shimura marches on his own castle to drive the Mongols out and retake it. The initial fighting is pure chaos, with bandits, samurai, and farmers all taking on the Mongols, and Jin kills 32 of them on his own. Eventually, they hit a roadblock though, and Jin scouts ahead. He wants to strike fear in the heart of the enemy and uses both poison and brutal sneak attacks to do that, killing 4 more Mongols right as his uncle gets through the gate to shame him for his tactics. A Hawacha begins raining arrows down, cutting that scolding short. Jin and Yuna rush ahead and deal with it, killing the 2 men atop the tower and quickly eliminating 28 more with their own weapon. The final push comes directly after that, netting another 14 kills as they drive the Mongols deep into the castle. But they have a surprise for the samurai and lure several men onto a bridge, then send horses carrying explosives out which blow the bridge up and needlessly kills a bunch of men. The loss of life is devastating for Jin, who lets his uncle know it. Lord Shimura intends to repair the bridge overnight and continue the fight in the morning, declining Jin's suggestion of sneaking into the castle and doing this shit himself.
I trained you to fight with honor.
Honor died on the beach. The Khan deserves to suffer.
While he nurses his cheek and his pride, Yuna reminds Jin that the people fight for him, not Lord Shimura. He asks her to gather as much poison as she can before he sneaks into the castle. He's going to poison the remaining Mongols and save a whole lot of lives. While moving through the castle undetected, Jin quietly assassinates 11 soldiers until he reaches the back, where a feast is being prepared. He sees barrels of drinks that he can slip the poison into and does exactly that, then waits out of sight until it's time for them to eat. Most of the remaining Mongols in the castle die here, with 20 of them counted on the ground. Jin enters the castle and confronts Ryuzo, who tries to convince Jin to recruit him into his ranks by convincing the others he was a spy that infiltrated the Mongols this whole time. But Jin says, nah, either you surrender now or we fight, bruh. They duel, and yet again Jin overcomes his foe. But this time, Mongols can't save him, and Jin finishes him off while looking him in the eyes. When Jin walks out, his uncle is there shooketh at the carnage. He tries blaming it on Yuna, saying she influenced him and that Jin can say as much, so Yuna faces punishment from the shogun. He refuses, however, handing his sword to Yuna and urging her to ride north. He officially chooses the ghost over being Lord Shimura's son and is imprisoned as a result. But he's made a lot of friends, and Kenji arrives to free him. He escapes and refuses to kill any of the samurai, but after they shoot his fucking horse and kill it, maybe he wishes he did. He continues north to find Yuna, but Mongols are raising everything and found a way to produce Jin's poison. He gets first-hand experience with it, but they don't use enough, which allows Jin to live and for Yuna to repeat her actions on Komoda Beach. He wants to know about the Khan, who has set up camp in a port to the north as he prepares to sail for the mainland. There's a pagoda not too far away they can use as a base of operations though, but that necessitates killing 28 more Mongols to clear it out. Without Lord Shimura's army, they need to build up their alliance again, and luckily Yuna is well connected. Jin rides to meet with some hunters, who are actually a group of bandits that are well armed and well trained. Jin promises shelter for the winter months in exchange for their help, which he happily accepts. They assist by clearing out the Mongol-occupied fort that will grant them clear access to Khotun Khan's location. This provides a decent chunk of kills that pushes Jin's total over 700 altogether. From there, Jin and Yuna travel to Port Izumi to scout the Khan's camp. They need a better lay of the land, and like an Ubisoft game, need to climb to a high point for that spectacular view. 9 Mongols are assassinated without a peep before they get to the lighthouse and sneak up top. There's a bunch of wolfsbane being stored in there, making Jin realize the severity of the situation if they're allowed to get to the mainland. They can feel a storm rolling in, so they plan to attack during that to provide some cover while his ships are destroyed and Jin can strike down the Khan. To even the odds a bit, Yuna heads out to find some hwachas they can use to bombard the Khan's army, and Jin sneaks into his uncle's castle to slip a note requesting his help. He rides back to their stronghold, and Yuna gives good news. The hwachas have been secured, and she even found some more people who abandoned Lord Shimura in favor of the ghosts. With the storm approaching, they head to the port to begin their assault. Yuna signals their arrival by immolating a Mongol ship, putting the entire port at attention so Jin can rack up the bodies with 17 more going down. After the initial wave, Jin's crew continues their attack, but they're outnumbered and regardless of what happens to them, need the Khan to die if Japan will have any hope. So Jin splits off to face Khotun, but runs into more of his men along the way. Lord Shimura answered his nephew's call though, so despite what happens to Jin, there's a good chance the Khan dies here today. But Jin doesn't want to leave it up to anyone else and confronts Khotun face to face. When it's clear he's going to lose, the Khan drills Jin in the face with some poison and scampers away like the biggest bitch. Jin gives chase, killing 7 of his men before boarding his boat and being forced into a confrontation that pits him against even more of his men while the Khan chases him around. Eventually though, the ghost defeats Khotun Khan handily, who claims they will be remembered.
You will be forgotten.
Jin Sakai finishes the Khan off with a smooth head removal. He meets Yuna on the shore and confirms the Khan's death, ending the day victorious and getting some well-earned rest. But the following day, Yuna tells Jin his uncle left a message asking to meet him back home. Thinking Lord Shimura was going to discuss the plan to drive off the remaining Mongols, he reveals that Clan Sakai has been disbanded, Jin's samurai title stripped, and lastly, labeled as a traitor to the shogun. He requests his nephew's presence as they go to the Sakai family graveyard. In an absolutely heartbreaking scene, Lord Shimura is tasked with killing Jin.
You have no honor, and you are a slave to it.
Before their duel, Jin writes the final words for Clan Sakai and Clan Shimura, and once he's ready, they draw their swords and fight each other as father and son. This ends in Jin's victory, with Lord Shimura requesting an honorable warrior's death. We as the player can choose here, and while I elected to kill him the first time I played this game, I opted to spare him this time around. Not only is it the canon choice, but it just makes the most sense character-wise. Jin has defied the samurai code and is not obligated to abide by that here. I think he'd rather keep his last remaining family member alive, even if they never talk again. He puts on his mask and leaves Unk there, knowing he will be an outlaw until the day he's captured or dies. And while the Mongol army still persists, a new threat reveals itself on Iki Island. He investigates a village on Tsushima where the residents have gone mad. 11 Mongols show up and attack Jin, and they pay dearly for that mistake. He questions one before his death and finds out a Mongol that goes by the Eagle is leading a war party against the raiders of Iki Island, and if they aren't stopped, they'll come to Tsushima. He hires a boat, but a storm destroys it and shipwrecks him on the shores of Iki. This DLC is pretty short in terms of story content, and it's 100% worth playing to get more of Jin's backstory, which was largely covered in the start of the video with the flashback sequences on Iki Island. The Eagle intends to recruit Jin into her army as a shaman, who elevates the battle prowess of regular warriors, making the DLC a bit more difficult at times. He teams up with the raiders of Iki, with the first one he meets actually being the same man that killed his father years prior. While initially pissed about this, Jin recognizes his father as a very flawed man, who killed these people and deserved the fate he was given. He vows to never be like him and forgives himself for his actions the night he was killed.
Petals soak with blood. My father's breath subsiding. Life's sweet perfume fades.
When it's all said and done, Jin Sakai racks up nearly 200 more kills during his Iki Island adventure, with the final one being the Eagle, who put up a lot more fight than Khotun Khan. That also means he gets into that quadruple digit number, baby. While there are plenty of Mongols left on Tsushima and Iki Island, I didn't do any of the side quests or the liberations. I did those in my first playthrough and wanted to keep this focus primarily on Jin Sakai's main storyline. And that's where we leave the Ghost of Tsushima. Jin Sakai is an amazing character, and following him on this journey was just as enjoyable the second time around. While I'm a little bummed we aren't getting a direct sequel, I am still beyond excited to see what Sucker Punch has in store for Ghost of Yotei. Unless he's mentioned or somehow makes an appearance in there, that's the end of Jin Sakai's story as we know it. He was a one-man army against the Mongols, finishing with 1,016 kills. Enemy variety was pretty shallow, but as expected, Mongols were the primary threat and made up nearly 97% of the total body count. 808 of those kills were in the main game and 208 counted in the DLC. His final total puts him in the top 10 of the kill count, just above Nico Bellic and right below John Marston. His main weapon was the Sakai family katana, which netted 53.84% of the total kills. Projectile weapons were the second most used at 30.9%, with the two Hawacha sections getting 32% of those kills. During the real-life invasion of Tsushima, the Mongols were estimated to have an army anywhere between 16,600 to 40,000 strong, which means he'd be responsible for killing roughly 2.5 to 6% of that whole force. That's fucking insane. If you meet someone like that, you better just pack up and go home, man. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thanks as always for watching. I'm King Deschain, signing off for now.